Yo, what's up? This your boy Rob Davis, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the Let's Fail podcast. Yeah, you heard me right. Let's Fail. F-A-I-L. And I need y'all to remember, never fear failure, but always give your best to success. And in order to achieve, you gotta believe. You hear me?
God broke me down, God broke me down, God broke me, God broke me down, God broke me down, God broke me, God broke me down, God broke me down, God broke me, God broke me down, down.
So that he could build me up.
Can't think I'm playing out here, man. It's for show, not a game, big homie. Hey.
What's up, man? It's your boy Rob Davis, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the Let's Fail podcast. Today on this episode, I got my wonderful mom with me, Tracy Daly, the CEO and founder of Emma's Footprint. And the name of this episode is going to be called From Grief to Purpose. And I'd like for you to introduce yourself, give people a little backspin of your story, and what is Emma's Footprint?
Hi, son. Rob is my oldest. I have 3 other living boys at home and a little girl in heaven. I been married to my husband for 18 years yesterday.
Okay.
Thank you. And Emma's Footprints is an organization that helps families that have experienced pregnancy or infant loss. And my little girl Emma died when I was 8 months pregnant, and she turned 17 this year. So I've been trying to figure that out for 17 years.
17? Oh, man. That's a long time.
It's a long time.
She lived like a year under Jax?
18 months
18 months?
apart.
That's pretty sweet. I mean, when we met, she was what, like 6 or 7?
What year did we meet?
16?
Okay.
Oh.
That was 8 years ago.
8 years? Yeah.
So she was 9? Uh-huh.
That's pretty sweet. So today, I know the theme of Let's Fail, we always talk about embracing failure as like a pivot point to our purpose or to our stepping stones to success. Not use like our setbacks as like stumbling blocks. You know, we try to use that as a purpose to like give us something to be driven for or to propel us to the next stage of life. And so what I want to talk about today is like some of the failures that occurred in your walk with like starting with your pregnancy and stuff. And what did that look like? What did it feel like? And how did you see yourself like finding purpose through that?
Great question. So Emma was my second pregnancy. First pregnancy went textbook, had Jackson, our oldest, and got pregnant. So we had Jackson before we got married. Yeah. And Jackson was 9 months old when we got married. He was in little tux, his little feet hanging out, getting walked down the aisle by my dad. And so got married September 2nd and got pregnant with Emma the next month in October. We wanted to grow our family. So we weren't not trying to have more babies, but it wasn't like, hey, let's do this now. So got pregnant with her October of 2006 and then carried her 34 weeks, and she died May 30th of 2007. I had woke up. It was Memorial Day weekend. It was on that Sunday. I remember coming in the house, and it was a pivotal moment. I didn't know was happening at the time. But I was washing my hands at the kitchen sink because we were working outside. I looked up out the window and I paused and just, it was the weirdest feeling. It was like a snapshot took in time, but I didn't know why. And I think now maybe that's the moment she died.
Yeah.
So that night I sat down and said, when's the last time I felt the baby move? It's like, we've been working outside all day, running around. I'm exhausted. I got a toddler. Doing yard work. And then the next day was Memorial Day. We went to picnics. Same thing. Kind of thought, when's the last time I felt the baby move? We didn't know if it was a boy or girl because I love surprises. Yeah. And then also in my head, I'm like, well, it's Memorial Day. Everyone's on holiday. Yeah. Like, what's the big deal? I'll call Tuesday morning. So I called Tuesday morning, my doctor's office, and they said, drink some juice and get in here right away. I'm like, yeah, I'll be up. My husband's working. I have a toddler. So I called my neighbor to help drive Jackson and I. I wanted support, somebody to come with me. So I went to the doctor's office. They were doing the Doppler on my stomach, which I was 24 years old, like second pregnancy, just super naive to pregnancy in general. And when a situation like this happens, you look back and you're like, oh, right, even that moment at the window or all these moments where you didn't know what was happening at the time, you look back and can reflect on that's what was happening. So they did the Doppler on my stomach, and unbeknownst to me, you're supposed to hear 2 heartbeats, right? Like mine and the baby's. What? That makes sense. But there was just one. It was mine. So still at that point, I didn't think anything was wrong. And so they're like, you need to get to the hospital immediately. I'm like, okay. So that's when I called my husband, Brian, and said, hey, I think you need to meet me at the hospital. Went to the hospital. They checked me in, got the gown on, was in the bed. The doctor did the sonogram while I was alone in the bed and told me, I'm so sorry, there's no heartbeat. And that's when my world flipped upside down.
Like, in that moment, was it like any experience of like devastating failure or expectations or hope that was lost in a little process, or like when you found that news out?
Yeah, I mean, failure, as I'm the mom carrying the baby. Like, I failed my baby because this is my job to protect. I had my purse that morning. Like, never in my brain did I think my baby is dead. I didn't really know babies could die because nobody really talked about it.
Yeah.
And until those words were given to me, it didn't compute in my head. What do you mean? This doesn't make sense. I've had a healthy pregnancy. I had a very successful pregnancy the first time. This one was extremely healthy. What do you mean there's no heartbeat? Yeah. Fix it, So failure, that's immediate thought. And then so much is lost in that moment. It's a lifetime. Like, yes, my baby had died, but it's a whole lifetime of, raising a daughter.
Yeah. And so, like, my next question would be like, what was like your next vision? I mean, getting that news, feeling that like devastating pain of like, dang, I just felt myself, my family for real. And what did like the next couple of months, so your vision look for like the next couple of months of like personal like healing or trying to figure it out from there?
So I wonder if a lot of people can relate to this, but it was years, like for at least 5 years. It is very dark in my memory. It's very dark in my heart. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to find purpose in my pain. Yeah. There was no thoughts of anything. I remember thinking, this is my life. Like, I don't want this. I didn't sign up for this. This wasn't supposed to happen. How do you come back from something like this? I had 2 more boys after Emma, and people ask me like, weren't you so anxious? What did those pregnancies look like? And I'm like, I don't know. I was so dead inside. I laugh now. Like, it's funny.
I mean, just pretty much.
It's right. But at the time, I had no feelings. I was a shell of myself walking around. I didn't know how to be a mom. I didn't know how to be a wife. I didn't know how to be Tracy because there was a huge hole in my heart, and I didn't know what to do with it.
So were you seeking counseling, or were you just grieving on your own?
So there was a local support group, and I got my husband to go, and you've met Brian. The fact that he went was a big deal. And I think it was just where we were in our grief. It was in the first couple weeks, 2 or 3 months after Emma died. I think we were so raw in our grief. We left that support group, and it felt to us like everybody was trying to one-up each other with their loss stories. Mm-hmm. Now, again, that's probably not what happened at all. That's just where we were so raw, so vulnerable, and it hurt so much. And so we left that support group, and Brian looked at me and said, I'm never going back there. It wasn't what we needed that night, right? Again, I don't know what the groups looked like any other month. That was just our experience. And so I said, well, I don't want to go by myself. So we never went back. So that was like an attempt at a connection point with us, because it feels like you're on an island by yourself. Yeah. Like we were just catapulted to this other planet. And connection is really important, but when you're out there floating around in space, it's like you need people to kind of reach out and grab you. So that was like an attempt at that, but that didn't happen. And then when I was pregnant with Bennett, my youngest, I mean, the whole time I'm like, we need help. We need help. I don't know how to, I didn't even know I was grieving until later. Like, how absurd is that? I didn't know I was grieving.
That kind of like lead me up to the next question I want to ask. Like, so I was gonna say, like, how do you feel like your grief manifested itself over the like couple of years that you seem kind of dark?
Recently, I'm like, I've been a grieving mom for 17 years. But then I'm like, well, the word grieving is a verb.
Yeah.
That means you're doing something. There's an action.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing anything. So I was just a mom. It's like a dead inside mom. And even so, when I was pregnant with our youngest, Bennett, I was like, we need help. We need a professional counselor. So we looked up somebody. I was like, we want a Christian counselor. And what I know now, we went and saw a gentleman. And I think we went maybe 5 or 6 times. And not once, I didn't know how to ask for what I needed. Again, I didn't know I was grieving at that point. I didn't know how to put words to what I was feeling. I wanted desperately somebody to look at me and tell me what was wrong with me.
Like diagnose you.
I felt like I was crazy. And that didn't happen in that space. I can't tell you why. I don't know if it's right. Men have never been pregnant. So that means that men have never experienced a pregnancy loss to relate. But that topic didn't even come up because I had been between 4 and 5 years after Emma died. So it felt like, oh, hey, that chapter is closed. That you can't still be. That was a long, aren't you over that? Yeah, aren't you over that by now? That can't be why you're in my office. You guys have marriage problems. I'm like, no, my baby is dead.
Like that, like for me, psychologically and emotionally, that can lead to marriage problems. Not being able
a bajillion percent
express or how you feel about the situation, or to be able to talk about it like, in a safe environment, and just like with our emotions and stuff. And I understand like that grieving you said for like 17 years because like I just came to the conclusion within this last year that I was still grieving over my dad. That was like 15 years ago. Oh, nah.
Yeah.
Like 15 years ago. And like it hardened me, it hardened my emotions a lot in ways like I can barely recognize.
Yeah.
So like I definitely can relate to that part of the grieving. I don't know what it would feel like to like lose a kid. I mean, between me and Christina, she had a miscarriage. I mean, how like it was like as a dad, you hope up and then it's gone.
Yep.
But being that you like the parent that carries, like the toll it takes on your body, emotionally, and already like development of like emotional attachment and stuff.
Right.
Or psychological attachment just get pumped up by having another kid.
Right. Yeah. That was our plan.
And so like being that was your only girl as well.
Yep.
I believe that made it even more special and stuff. So, I mean, you kind of like talked about like the importance of like the professional role, support groups, and personally coping mechanisms. And it was like also how to like reconcile feelings of loss from the process, like moving forward. Like what did that look like?
So my healing journey did not begin until Emma's Footprints was created, the organization.
Right.
So when somebody looks at you and says, time heals all wounds. No, it doesn't. Yeah, aren't you over this yet? Nope, I'll always be Emma's mom. All these kind of, I don't know if they're meant to be helpful or just people don't know what to say in those moments. And
Kind of like generic.
yeah, right. And so somebody will say that now, and I've kind of gotten bold. Like, oh, time. I'm like, no, time doesn't actually heal anything. You actually have to put the work in. You actually have to grieve. Grieve is an action verb. So when the organization started and the Lord was very clear, I told him no a bunch of times about starting this organization. That's when my healing journey started. And that's when I can start remembering things again. So it's really interesting. I went through this dark period right after Emma died for 5 to 6 years, only until I got to grieve and be active and be her mom, because I wasn't allowed to be her mom before. So being Emma's mom, saying her name, telling people about her, that's when my brain kind of kicks on and I can remember things. And that's when my healing journey started.
So like within those like first 5 years, was it fair to associate yourself with Emma's name or to bring it up?
Nope, I was not allowed to. Nobody talked to me about her. Even Brian, my husband, and I never talked about her.
Do you think that's like what prolonged the grieving process?
100%. Yep. Yeah.
And so let's fast forward to like starting Emma's Footprint. What was that initial feeling of this idea of starting a nonprofit in the name with Emma?
I can't do this. Lord, you chose the wrong person. I did not go to school for this. I did not dream about this as a little girl. I have no idea what I'm doing.
You feel like no
Next.
art?
Yeah. You got your lines crossed. No, that ain't me.
So was it intimidating thinking of like the idea?
Hey, absolutely. I had 3 small boys at home. Yeah. I Googled, how do you start a nonprofit? Yeah. Right. It wasn't like, oh, I've always dreamed of doing this. This is my time. I'm like, no, I graduated with an accounting degree in college. Yeah. I'm an athlete. I play sports. Give me the basketball. Right. Give me a glove.
So like with that, I know your backstory. You're playing basketball and she in the Hall of Fame for Jordan Clay.
I am.
So how did some of that mentality switch over to like creating a grit start to like the nonprofit?
So I always wondered, Lord, why did you give me this athletic ability?
Yeah.
I was the setter in volleyball. I was a point guard in basketball, and I was shortstop in softball. Yeah. So if you notice those are all leadership positions, right, on the court or on the field. I had some athletic talent, and I wanted the ball. Give me the ball. I'll make the play. I didn't really have tolerance for somebody that couldn't catch a ball. So while I was in leadership positions, I was not a good leader, and I was never chosen captain for any of my teams.
Because you felt like a leader.
Right? And isn't that crazy? It's interesting to think about. So I'm like, Lord, why did you give me this athletic ability that then never went anywhere? And I was in these leadership roles and positions that just because you're put there doesn't mean you can actually lead. So now starting a nonprofit, God, I know, chose me to be the leader of. And so I've wrestled for many years, right? Again, like, give me a basketball. I'm so confident on the court. Yeah. Starting a nonprofit, I'm terrified. My knees are shaking. And I keep saying, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. But over the last 10 years, like the organization turned 10 this year, I've had my own personal leadership growth. Oh man, it's been so hard and challenging and refining. And just lately, I feel like I'm in a season of, no, God, you did choose the right person. Like, I can do this. You did give me this grit. Because I'm not a quitter. I'll figure it out. I'm going to get knocked down, but I'm going to get back up. Yeah. Like, this is too important, right? I was that mom in that bed that didn't have help. I didn't have somebody reach out and grab me. And now it's unacceptable. Like, any family, whether their loss happened last week or it's been 30 years, I'm here. It's like I put that black stuff under my eyes, right? Like the warrior, like, let's go do this. Give me my jersey. I am here. I'm going to fight. I am going to claw and scratch. Like, I'm not going to let you go where I went. Like, it was so dark. Yeah.
It's pretty important for people, like, for you to have that experience of knowing what that felt like, do that by yourself and not want that for the next person to like sit through. That's kind of like what this podcast is about.
Yeah.
Those use our failures. Those use our like hard-won experiences to comfort other people, let them know like it's okay that we mess up or sometimes we fail, but as long as we get back up, get back in the game and fight. And so I want to ask, like, how did the mission for the nonprofit was defined and refined through the process of failing?
So I remember in the beginning, I'm like, hey, raise your hand. Do you want to be on my board? Like, you. I was like, hey guys, what do we raise money for? Right? Great leader. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And somebody said, well, what are you going to raise money for? Like, what's your, oh shoot. Yeah. I have to communicate what our mission is. And so just kind of basing it on my own experience, right? In that hospital bed, when you're told that your baby has no heartbeat, then you get all these questions. Did you want to bury your cremate? Excuse me, what? And I want a live baby. Hey, you need to pay for a burial or cremation. Excuse me, what? We are a young couple that just got married. We don't have money set aside for a funeral. So we chose cremation. And so I was like, no family should ever have to pay for that. No family's getting pregnant and like saving money for that in case that happens. And I don't care if you have a lot of money, you should never have to write that bill to a funeral home. So I said, we're going to pay for burials. We're going to pay for cremations. And then if you bury, you need a headstone. And if you cremate, you need an urn. I'm like, we're going to pay for that too. And then I'm like, we need to find a professional counselor to help families through this, because it's great to be able to write that check, but that doesn't heal anybody. Yeah. And so I prayed for a counselor, and the Lord brought us an amazing counselor that we pay for sessions for to help these families through that. So that's what the bulk of our mission expenses go towards.
All right. And so the next question is going to lead us to, like, walk me through, like, your first remembrance of, like, the first family you helped, or the first call to action for Emma's Footprint. Like, how was that, and how did it make you feel?
So somebody gave me some advice of just pray for that first family, because what you're doing is going to explode. Nobody's doing this. This is so needed. Just pray for that first family, because we're all like, nobody's calling. Maybe this was a bad idea. And wouldn't you know, a little boy, his name was Francisco. He was born on Emma's birthday, May 30th, and he passed the next day. This was in 2013, maybe. I might be getting the year wrong. Maybe, I think it was 2013. And the mama was connected with it. I don't even know how she got a hold of us. Yeah. I mean, because we were so brand new. Nobody knew what we were doing. And we had broken up we were a family team under the March of Dimes for 2 years. And we raised a lot of money for them. But they don't help with pregnancy or infant loss. So when we had to break up with the March of Dimes, and then we opened Emma's own bank account. I put $500 in of my own money. And we got the call for that first family. And then we kind of gave a call on Facebook, like, hey guys, we got our first family. Does anybody want to help? So we helped pay for his services. And then we did a tree planting with them. They're actually on our brochure, a picture of us like holding hands praying, like at the tree planting. Yeah. That was our very first family, which I'll never forget. And we've helped almost 2,500 families to date.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So with that, we're like that first family, you balancing your own recovery, personal recovery, did you find like the motivation and energy to, like, I'm gonna do this?
That was it. It was helping these families helped give me pieces back to my heart, right? Like every family, it's like, hey, that's Emma's purpose. I wish she was here with us. You know, I'd have a 17-year-old daughter who'd be a junior. She just would have started her junior year, but she's not. And so every family, it's like her purpose grows and it grows and it grows and it grows. And as parents, right, with our living children, we put them in sports and, band, and we want them to go and succeed and do great things and change the world. You know, Emma's doing that, even though she's not here. And so every family it's just that reason. And I don't need it. I've come to a point where I'm like, hey, Lord, if you shut this thing down, that's your call, right? I'm not going to let that define me or let the organization define me. But it's just been a really cool ride to be Emma's mom. So,
what was some like fears that was prevalent, like starting out that you had, or like what was some of the failures you first was faced with when starting out?
Fears are, where's money going to come from? And when you're a nonprofit, you have to raise money. It's not easy. It sounds glamorous. Everyone thinks they can start a nonprofit. The money just does not come in. Yeah. So, okay, yeah, right. I'm like, our phone keeps ringing, and we have to we're being asked to pay for funerals and cremations and headstones. And so is the money also going to come in, or is that going to dry up and we're going to have to say no to families? It's always been a fear of mine to tell a family no.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened yet in 10 years. Praise the Lord. But I don't ever want to have to do that. We haven't had to. So that's been a continuous fear over the last 10 years of, are we just going to run out of money? Because it's not the other way. It's not like, oh, are there going to be less families to help? That's not it. And then, right, I'm the president of the board, so I have to lead the board. And so I have to tend to the organization. The organization is a whole different animal than your mission. Those are two separate things. The day-to-day operations and fundraising and keeping that stuff going, and then, growing the organization, keeping it healthy, looking for people to help serve your mission and giving them jobs. And so it's a balance. That's not easy.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Let's Build podcast. If you're just tuning in, I'm with my mom, Tracy Daly, who is the founder and CEO of Emma's Footprint, which they specialize in infant and pregnancy loss. They help with counseling. They help with funeral expenses. We help with medical stuff too?
No, not medical.
I just
Yep, and then we do care packages. Every family gets a care package, and we started doing couples retreats. So we pay for that.
And that's what we're talking about on Let's Fill today. What was the challenges of pregnancy loss, the fears associated with that, and also starting a nonprofit, taking her pain and turning it into purpose. And I just want to update y'all for inquiries that I do accept donations if need be. Cash App me at YPSTG number 5, a Cash App, or you can Venmo me at Bob, BOBBED, Venmo. You can always reach out on all platforms like YouTube, Spotify, iPodcast, Google Podcasts to find the show at Let's Build the Podcast. And just to get back to things, I also wanted to get to over the years meet all these different families, how do for someone that's out there that's probably experienced a loss or is new to this, they kind of scared, they probably feel alone, there's nobody else out there. Can you describe how a lot of some strong bonds has been formed over the years with some families?
So many bonds. I have people that I call friends now that are in my circle. I lunch with, I let into my space. They're lost families, and I've met some of the most amazing people, which it's like the worst club to be a part of, but you meet some of the best people. And watching other people create those bonds and relationships, whether it's in support group, we do monthly support groups in our office here in Erie, virtually, and we're actually launching a support group in Pittsburgh this month. So watching these families come in, create connections on their own, and hang out outside support group, it just makes my heart want to burst.
That's what I was about to say. What joy do you get? How can you describe the joy that when you see a family come in, probably broken and devastated, a little scared, felt they failed in the beginning, to a couple years down the line, they volunteer, they helping out. Can you describe that type of joy?
It's so humbling. I've had multiple families look at me and just genuinely say, "You've saved my life," and that's hard. I'm like, well, I mean, I didn't, but I did. I have, because of that grit and determination, I've created a space and a community where they can come and be I get to be Emma's mom in that community. Society doesn't really allow space for that, right? You can't just walk into work one day and sit down and look at somebody and say, "Hey, my baby Emma died, and can we have a chit chat about that?" With education and us talking about pregnancy and infant loss more, we hope to create that space more and more, because to just have one little hour a month at support group for lost families, your whole 24/7 has flipped upside down, right? When you go back to work, you're not the same person. And so just creating those pockets of space that you can, whatever you need, you can ask for and be, I could be Emma's mom in that space or not. That's my choice. But yeah, it's really humbling when a family says that, but I absolutely understand what they mean, because I was that mom that was in that dark space that I needed light, and I needed somebody to come save me.
Giving us some validation, making them feel accepted and stuff. Y'all do a podcast.
We do.
What's the name of the podcast?
Confessions of a Grieving Mother.
So how long you guys been doing the podcast?
3 years.
3 years. Dang. That's
we put out an episode every week, and that has been, it's all over the world. Yeah. People listen all over the world, and we get emails all the time "Hey, I had a loss. I found your podcast. I binged your podcast," which is a commitment. Yeah. "And I want to be on your podcast." And so that's another tool that we use, so families can just tell their stories. real, raw, and authentic.
How has that experience been? Like, to share your story on a podcast and have other people come on and you kind of like lead them in a conversation, or you sit back and be the listener.
It's terrifying every time because, everybody's grief journey is different. And we want them to share what they want. They can give us the nitty-gritty details of things, or they could get to share what they want. So honoring that and having them, just trying to navigate that, it's a lot of pressure. And every episode we do, it's another family that their baby has died. So they're not easy sessions to record.
Yeah, I understand that, but like the whole thing is about resilience, because I can only imagine like when you go to help another family, it like sparks that old emotion back up, But now it's not like a fair thing. It's more like, let's hop in there, let's get the job done.
We got work to do.
Let's pull them out the fire.
Yeah.
And I really like that a lot. I mean, it's been an inspiration. I've been able to like walk with you guys the times I have been there to see how much you've grown over the years.
Yeah, it's not been pretty. It really hasn't.
And so, like, can you describe like times you feel like it ain't been pretty? Like,
Yeah, so, in a marriage, there's two people, but we're supposed to be one. And when one person thinks they're fine and refuses to acknowledge their own grief journey, just recently, my husband has dove into EMDR trauma therapy after, trauma from childhood, trauma from, losing a baby. We hold it all, and if you don't find outlets, or if I've gotten to be Emma's mom, and in certain spaces he's gotten to be Emma's dad, maybe like at events or other places like that, but he hasn't really gotten to be Emma's dad and go through his own journey. So he's just starting to do that 17 years in. So it's never too late, but it is extremely necessary and important to start that journey.
And like you said, it's be one. I kind of like, I don't know when to ask. Like, you said he just started. I mean, he talked to me about it.
Mm-hmm.
But was it lonely?
So lonely.
The only one grieving the whole thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And
which I knew. I'm like, no, it's leaking out of you. I can tell that you're on fire.
Who's like that's bad.
Yeah. He's like, no. Like, okay. But that kind of makes a point of like, I can create this community, and I can tell you, here's this counselor we pay for sessions, here's support group, I can give you all the things. But if you don't acknowledge you need to do it, and you don't make that, I can't drag you to support group. I threaten people sometimes. Like, I will take you and bring you to Pam's office and sit you down, but I can't do that. So you have to take that first step. You have to acknowledge, I need not necessarily help, but like I need community. Somebody just needs to love me for a minute. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, and just lean into it. And when I've seen people be real stubborn like that, and then they finally lean into it, and like the freedom that they get, it just brings me to tears. I'm like, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? What do you have to lose?
What would you say is from Tracy now to Tracy 17 years ago?
Buckle up. You are going to go on the ride of your life that you have been chosen for, that you have been prepared for, even though you might not believe that some days. It's just been a real honor, and it's been amazing to be let into this space where these families are so broken and so wounded, to be trusted, to be able to be that close to somebody. I get called to go into the hospitals and I get to meet dead babies, which is a really weird sentence to say. And it is such an honor for me to get to meet those babies. There's only a handful of people in this world that I got to meet Emma. But everybody knows her name now, but a handful got to meet her. And so when I'm chosen to meet those families and those babies, it's humbling. And even if it's not in that space, to be let into that family's life, the good, the bad, the ugly, and be trusted with their heart, with everything. man, it's been such a ride.
But so I want to ask another question. Was it type of like any women influencers or any books you read about, or anybody in your life that you might be associated with that run nonprofits that like was kind of if they can do it, I can do it type of thing that you looked up to?
That's a great question. I model my leadership after Jesus. When I, don't know what to do or feel stuck, I go and see how he led. I'm just starting to like read stories like that of other women or I try to learn leadership. And I think knowing who I am as a leader is my next step. And then maybe like branching out to look at other leaders to help model myself after.
That's pretty sweet. So what's some long-term goals for Emma's? I think the gala over with.
We're retiring the gala. Mm-hmm.
So what's like some new ideas or new events that I know y'all had a memorial walk every year. It's reached started in Erie, up to Florida, now it's in California. Any more destinations?
Pittsburgh. Our Pittsburgh walk is this Sunday. Yep, our third Pittsburgh walk.
So I know that's a thing. So what other avenues are you guys looking to grow Emma's and branch out to different things to do?
Yeah, our memorial walks are really important and they've really taken off. And so we'd love to bring that to more communities, more cities. It's a space where we read the babies' names. We have a moment. Families and friends are there. We've all been to walks for something, right? And that's just been really successful and impactful for our mission. So we'd love to branch out to other cities with that, kind of reframing some things this year and focusing on relationships within the organization and creating a stronger foundation so we can grow. Allegheny County is our second biggest county we serve after Erie County. So we've had a walk in Pittsburgh. This Sunday is our third walk, but and I just said we're launching a in-person support group in Pittsburgh this month too. So it's interesting being a visionary and seeing the big picture of what God's doing, but you can't go right there. It's the baby steps. It's like, where's the next step? And just a little bit at a time. You can't take all these things. It's like, Lord, okay, where are you moving us? And then moving with him. So I'm interested to see what Pittsburgh looks like in the next couple of years and having maybe an office location there, employees down there, more boots on the ground so we can create it nationwide. We're serving families all over the country, but just we're doing it from Erie. But having people in those cities, support groups and, putting on those walks, I think is where we're headed.
I think that's like, I want to say, like you said, having this vision, but taking these baby steps. Is that a difference between Tracy 17 years ago and Tracy again?
Oh, Tracy 17 years ago was a mess. She didn't do anything.
Like appreciating the journey instead of the destination.
Yeah. I couldn't have imagined a baby step or a big step at that point. I'm just so thankful God has brought me to where I am today.
And so I would like to say, like on the wrap-up tip, is there any like final thoughts, words of encouragement you would like to send to any listeners that may be listening?
Yeah, if you're listening and you have experienced a pregnancy or infant loss, I think what's cool about our mission is it does not matter when the loss happened, whether it was last week or 50 years ago. We can love you. We can support you. You can come to support group. We can pay for counseling sessions. And so if this has hit something in your heart and maybe you're crying right now because you're recalling 15 years ago you had an early term loss and insert whatever, you were dismissed, nobody's talked to you about it, everybody's told you, aren't you over it yet? Whatever that is, please reach out. You deserve that healing. Your baby matters and you're worthy.
Yeah. All right. I know it's kind of hard to, like you said, like for men to deal with this, but like what was your gear towards the man that deals with it?
Ooh, I love a dad that's, stubborn. I got my husband. Dads, you matter too. You are important. Your baby matters too. That baby is half of you. And yes, men and women's grief journeys are different, but you have to grieve also. And whatever that looks like, right? I'm not going to look at dads and say, you have to grieve the way I did. but you have your own journey to go on. So I just encourage and support, and I challenge you to go on your own journey.
If I'm mistaken, was it a guy podcast, Birth to Family?
Yeah, Guys in Grief. So we have 3 dads. Yeah, listen to the Guys in Grief podcast. You deserve space. You deserve to be heard. You are just as important as the moms. And when you both can grieve individually and then grieve together, it is so powerful. And I feel like that's like a glimpse of heaven.
All right. So, we're finna get ready to wrap up. I appreciate you coming on my show.
Thanks for having me.
It's about its footprint, the struggles, the fears of starting a nonprofit, being a greeter mom, still being a mother with 3 boys, my little brothers.
They love you.
Just finding like the motivation within, just to hold on, to be resilient, and to like push through all the trials and setbacks that come through. Like you said, it wasn't all pretty. It got ugly at some times.
Yep.
At times was dark. But the sun still shine. And it's just like what this podcast is about, man. Just like taking our failures and not losing hope. We probably made a poor decision. We probably was put in a situation we had no control over. There's probably some things that was just out of our hands that, like, no matter what we did, it probably would have still ended up like that. But we learned the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And just to close us out, because it's the theme with us all, the show. What was the greatest lesson you learned over these last 17 years?
I am stronger than I thought I could ever be. I'm worthy, I'm valuable, and I'm a difference maker.
That's solid. So I hope y'all enjoyed the show today. Once again, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Rob Davis, Tracy Dailies, and Most Footprint, Let's Build Podcast. And hopefully we get Mom on here sometime soon. But just stay tuned in. Thanks, and have a good day.
God broke me down, God broke me down, God broke me, God broke me down, God broke me down, God broke me, God broke me down, God broke me down, God broke me, God broke me down, down.
so that he could build me up.